organism, and it can be devastating. It can be really bad.
Yeah, I
Um,
remember doing a report on tetanus in the fourth grade, and my dad helping me draw a picture because you couldn't just print it off the internet at that
and
time.
one day you know a boy named Bobby that looks just like
Yeah, I
this
was
when
like,
he
"What?
orgasms.
This looks really familiar. What you're doing?" I feel like this is the drawing my dad drew in the fourth grade.
So he's good with things, so he doesn't want to change.
Yeah, he's good with things. And I think that's partially my fault too. I think I've made his life very smooth sailing.
So you do a lot of enabling.
I enable. Yes, I will say that I didn't think I was in the beginning. I thought I was just
Helping.
king making,
Ooh. So you were helping him progress, move forward.
career wise.
You're
Yeah,
being a real supportive mate.
right. I thought
Yeah.
that hey, there's certain things and certain habits that I could, you know, that we could change to kind of like boost your career. And I felt like that's what I was doing, but I took it too far.
Did you know how talented he was when you first met him?
Of course,
You,
I had.
you knew him. You knew of him.
Yes, I didn't know him. I watched some Mad TV, but I didn't know him. I didn't watch it enough to obsess about anyone on that show. But there was this one time, maybe 2 years before we actually started dating, I went to the Comedy Store, and I remember it was an Oscar. It was it was right before the Oscars, and Chris Rock was hosting the Oscars, and Bobby followed Chris Rock at the Comedy Store, and completely annihilated,
Destroyed. Yeah.
destroyed.
And do you like comedy?
I love comedy.
Yeah, and you do it.
I don't do comedy.
Do you consider what you do with Tiger Belly comedy?
No, I feel very ancillary. I'm a setter upper.
You're like a straight guy.
Yeah, yeah.
A straight guy.
Yeah.
That's comedy.
Oh, I didn't know that.
You have to kind of understand it. You're setting him up to be to hit the ball, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I think that also causes a little bit of a rift in our relationship because I feel like the only way to really to pull out all the best bits of Bobby during a podcast is to be a little bit antagonistic. And I I don't like that part about myself.
You do seem nicer here than you did in the podcast.
Thank you. I think I'm generally nicer.
I
all around.
agree, but Bobby brings out the antagonistic part. And
Yeah.
I kind of feel the same way around him, I got to say.
Yeah, I feel like on my own podcast, I don't generally have nice things to say
About him.
or anything. I'm kind of like this like angry. I come off to at least when I hear myself, I'm like, what am I so angry about? And I think it's because I like to pull those good bits from Bobby, and that's how I know to do it.
And so you said you saw something that you could do to elevate him?
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
Basic things like, hey, you have an audition
Show
at
up.
11 o'clock. Show up. Which is something
Pretty complicated.
Yeah.
Wow, how'd you see that?
he just
So
wasn't doing when we
Very
first met.
insightful. That's incredible.
Yeah, just a little bit of structure, just a little bit of like a moral boost.
Moral.
And
So he was getting depressed.
he was getting very depressed, and I would drive with him to auditions just so if it went bad, he'd just have someone to process the whole experience with because he has audition fright. He is so anxious about just being in front of a room, which is so hard for me to fathom this because he performs in front of all these people every night. But yeah, that's how he feels. He hates auditioning.
Did you see the Pavarotti documentary that Ron Howard did? It was beautiful, and the only thing that surprised me, there's a lot of stuff I didn't know about his personal life, but what surprised me was when talking to his daughters, they were being interviewed and saying how he was paralyzed with anxiety every performance, and was convinced he was horrible,
Yeah.
convinced he was going to screw it up, and
Yeah.
then when he was done, couldn't listen to any recordings because he convinced he was terrible.
That sounds exactly like Bobby.
God, that's so. Think about that guy.
Yeah.
Pavarotti thinks he was. I mean, he was paralyzed with anxiety every performance, every opera.
I wonder who he idolizes. Like, who does he think sounds good?
I know who. It was Caruso.
Oh.
Yeah. And he idolized him. But who knows? Caruso may have been just as paralyzed. It didn't seem like, but who knows? So you help Bobby.